In this video, I'm going to talk about dating before versus after awakening. You know what I hate about dating after awakening compared to before? Well, for one, before you awaken, you have many more options because 3/4 of the planet is still asleep. What really bugs me about dating after awakening is that many women out there are actually drawn to the characteristics of the unawoken man. Now, I know that statement alone is going to trigger some people out there, but just hear me out. This is not just something that I've experienced, witnessed, and observed in my own personal life, but after 5 years of watching dating coaches on Instagram, they all say the same thing. In 1998, I was 18 years old. That's when I would meet a woman that I would get into a 22-year relationship with, marriage, kid, white picket fence, 2 dogs, all that kind of shit. And when I examined my behavior of how I acted back then compared to now, you know, acting that way that actually worked is not even an option for me anymore. Let's examine some of the most common advice that I've received in the last 5 years listening to male dating coaches. Have lots of options when it comes to women because jealousy draws women in like a moth to a flame. Never tell a woman that you only have interest in her because this makes them stop chasing you. Have a large friend circle and don't give her all of your time and attention, or this will make her get bored of you. After 2020, when my divorce was finalized, when I look at the last 5 years of all the women that I've dated and got with, any girl that I just had a sexual connection with, I could bump into them into the street, we could have a normal conversation and everything would be fine. The 2 girls that I actually showed interest in, well, that's a different story. One of them turned out to be a complete psycho and put arsenic in my drink and tried to kill me. And the other was my twin flame who would rather stay in shallow connections so that her abandonment wounds don't get triggered. Now, going back to 1998 when I was 18 years old and I met the woman that would eventually become my wife before going through an awakening. And the 3 most common pieces of advice that male dating coaches are giving guys today when it comes to relationships and women, which are make a woman jealous, never give her all of your time and attention, and never fully commit to her. Back in 1998, when I was 18 years old, I was about as unawakened as you could get. Me and my ex-wife first met. I had a large friend circle. They may have been connections solely based off of our alcohol addiction, and many of the people that I hung out with would sleep with their buddy's girlfriend at any given chance. But nonetheless, I had enough friends to pack our house every month for my UFC parties that I would host. Or I could just pop into a local bar on a given Friday and Saturday night by myself and be guaranteed to run into someone that I know and could hang out with. And after my awakening, unless you consider the crows and squirrels that I feed every morning, my friends, I pretty much don't have a friend circle and do everything solo. When I think back to the first 5 years of when me and my ex-wife first were hanging out and dating, I was always prioritizing my friends over her. Whether that meant hanging out at the bar, going on Vegas trips with the boys, going golfing, or just doing anything that guys usually do together. And back then I was working a 9 to 5 where I'd get sent on the road for weeks at a time, and that would usually turn into a big booze up with the boys and create a little drama. After my awakening, very little friend circle, and I work remotely from my laptop and create my own hours, and apparently this gets me labeled as having nothing going on in my life. When it comes to the advice of making women jealous, and I look back to how I acted in the beginning of my relationship that would lead to marriage, I have to say 100% that it is effective. However, after my awakening, getting myself to behave in that same manner is almost not even possible. Me and my ex-wife first met, 11 p.m. would roll around and I'd be like, I'm pretty tired. I'm going to go home and go to sleep. Only to drive straight to the bar and hang out with my buddies till 3 a.m. getting pissed drunk. And since we had so many common friends, often when we were all hanging out together, someone would slip up and make a comment about how drunk I was at the bar that night, and my girlfriend would be like, "What the fuck? I thought you were at home sleeping." And that's when I'd say something like, "Well, that was the plan, but as soon as I got close to my house, someone texted me and asked me to come out for a drink, even though, the whole time my plan was to go straight to the bar." In 2001, I won this contest on Much Music called Gonna Meet a Rock Star. This was a music channel on TV, and I got to hang out with Snoop Dogg backstage at his concert, drink some Hennessy, smoke some big blunts, all that kind of stuff, right? Made a half an hour long series, and it was aired on television for a few months. And this pretty much made me a local celebrity. You know, I'd have girls come up to me at the bar and want to get with me just for the simple fact that I smoked blunts with Snoop Dogg and was on TV. And this one time, a blonde girl came up to me and we started talking about my experience meeting Snoop. And, you know, the next thing I knew, we were on the dance floor, dirty dancing together. A couple days go by, my girlfriend calls me up in a rage, asking me if I was at the bar on a night I said I was at home sleeping, dancing with some blonde girl on the dance floor. She went on to explain how her cousin phoned her up and told her that her best friend told her that she met the guy that met Snoop Dogg and they were on the dance floor together and he was kissing her neck and all this shit, right? And that's when I'd be like, oh, don't worry about it. We were just super drunk and we were just dancing. It was harmless. Or times when me and my girlfriend would be hanging out at my house and the house phone would ring. You know, back in those days, there's no cell phone. And she would answer it only to have some random girl calling and asking for me. And even after all this shady shit, this was the kind of behavior that would eventually lead me to being in a long-term relationship and getting married. So if making a girl jealous is one of the key components to being in a relationship, after my awakening, I just don't have it in me. And when it comes to not prioritizing a woman because they just end up getting bored, I mean, I work remotely from a laptop, create my own hours, and the squirrels and crows in my life are pretty flexible about when they get fed. Starting to feel like my lifestyle doesn't obey to the formula that it takes to get a woman into a relationship these days. You know, I'm 45 years old and I'm at a place in my life where I'd like to meet a woman, you know, maybe go watch some sunsets together, create some good memories, but instead I have to resort to rubbing water balloons in my face just to get over this booby withdrawal that I'm going through. And you know, when it comes to sex, I know that's not the issue because every woman that I've got with in the last 5 years has had at least one orgasm when we slept together, and God's blessed me with a black man's penis, so I know that's not the problem. And what the fuck has happened to dating in the last 22 years since I've been single? You know, when I became single and started online dating back in, let's just say 2020, you know, compared to back in 1998, my mentality was, you know, the first time I started chatting with a girl and we agreed to meet up for a date, I was like, okay, I pick you up from your house, show up with flowers, right? And when I asked her for her address, she's like, I'm not fucking telling you where I live. Nowadays, if you show up to a date with flowers to give to a girl, you're considered a simp. I mean, I don't understand that. Ladies have all the options, and to me, it just makes common sense to show your appreciation for their time and all the energy it takes for them to get ready and, you know, just meet you on a date. But showing up with flowers now means that you're a bitch in some way. I don't understand that. All I know is that when it comes to dating, if you haven't gone through an awakening, you have more options. It seems much easier to get into a committed relationship.